Welcome to the Frequency First podcast. The podcast where we explore what would happen if we accepted ourselves as a vibrational being having a human experience and a human having a vibrational experience. How are we the conscious co-creators of the art that is our life? Inspiring conversations with amazing people from all walks of life who are truly walking their talk and embodying their life's purpose. I'm your host, Genevieve, frequency artist, oracle, and energetic healer. Let's dive in. Hi guys, so for today's episode, we're going to be talking about what does it mean to be a vibrational being having a human experience and a human being having a vibrational experience. And we're also going to talk about the question, what is frequency art? And are you actually a frequency artist? So what it means to accept ourselves as a vibrational being is to accept that we are more than just physical skin and bones. We are more than just our emotional body. We also have a wider energetic body or energetic field. And in that energetic field is a lot of information about us and coming through us and being translated by us, even if we're not consciously aware of it. So the same way that you can go to the gym every day if you want and develop your physical body and your relationship with your physical body, or the same way that you could choose to go into therapy or, learn about psychology or do a lot of somatic body work and get really in tune with your emotional body and train this muscle, you can also consider yourself as a vibrational being. And that means that you can take the time to develop the muscle of connecting with your vibrational energetic field. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. That can be, getting to know more about your intuition. What is your intuition? How can you tune more deeply into your intuition? How can you act on your intuition more quickly? How can you sense things in your outer vibrational field before they manifest in your physical reality? How can you consider yourself as a multidimensional being instead of only a physical or cerebral or emotional being? And so that's what this podcast is really all about. It's about exploring what would happen if we accepted that our nature is multidimensional and it includes the vibrational and energetic element of life. And how could we really play with that and enhance the quality of our life? Of course, we're also a human being having a vibrational experience. And it doesn't really matter which way you come at it, we're always going to meet in the middle. So if you find it easier to connect with, I'm going to say, your humanness, so your physicality, your body, your emotions, the earth, your grounded, lived, practical experience, that doesn't mean that you're not aware of your vibrational self. So I'm just going to ask you a question for those of you who feel most easily connected with the human part of you, your human experience. And it's a question that I always like to ask my guests as well. So, when was a time that you can imagine or remember having an experience that didn't make any logical sense to you? I'm sure that all of you have one. So, when was one experience that you had that just didn't have any rhyme or reason? Maybe it freaked you out a little bit. Maybe you found it beautiful and amazing. Maybe it was as simple as, having a conversation with a friend and they said something to you, and for some reason at that moment when they spoke to you, you got goosebumps all over your body, or you got cold chills, or hot flush, or your hair stands on ends. Just this feeling beyond logic that something in that conversation with your friend gave you some kind of a reaction. Maybe there was a time that you knew something before it happened, and then it happened. And you were like, oh, actually, I somehow knew that. Or maybe, I would actually love to hear what your experiences are that you're thinking of right now. You can write them to me on social media, and I can share them in the stories. That might be really interesting to share together. So thinking about that, whatever that moment is in your life that felt like it was beyond logic. So this was you having a relationship with the vibrational aspect of yourself. However that manifested in your physical reality, whether it was through, cold or hot chills or pins and needles or just a knowing, a feeling, a vision. This is your vibrational self communicating down into your physical self, down into your 3D reality, reminding you that there is always more than meets the eye and that this is still you. It's not something separate to you. This is still you. It's the wider you. So that's for those of you who find it easier to connect in with the humanness first and then contemplate, okay, the times where that's true. I really felt this, this connection with the vibrational self or the invisible realms or whatever you want to call it. Now, for those of you who may find it easier to perceive yourself as a vibrational being, and you may struggle a little bit more with the humanness side. So it might be very easy for you to connect with intuition, with feeling, with spirit. Maybe you're a healer or a psychic or an energetic worker, and you find this realm very comfortable. Maybe you find it more difficult to connect to the human part of your experience. So I'd ask you to try and think of a time of when something that you had already known, seen, perceived, or felt well before it happened in the 3D reality. Can you name a time that you felt like you were literally walking or living in the physical manifestation of that which you had already perceived? And I'm sure if that's your zone of comfort, the invisible realms, I'm sure you have an example of that too. And that's that beautiful moment where all things are aligned and that energy that was at one stage only present in your outer field, existing as a possibility, came all the way down through your system and manifested itself into your physical reality. Some examples might be that you saw something in a dream, uh, a scene or a person that you were going to meet or something that was going to happen. And then maybe sometime later, you actually experienced that thing in your physical reality. You walked into that scene, you met that person. It may have been a knowing in a certain situation. You knew that a situation was going to go in a certain direction through your clairsentience or your clairvoyance or whatever senses were activated in that moment. You knew that. And then sometime later, you walk into the physical reality of that thing. Maybe it was through creative process. Maybe you received what I call a download, which is where you connect to the universal library of intelligence and you receive into your sphere a creative idea. And then at some point into the future, you process that idea through your system and then you created it out into the physical world and you saw it there manifested. So that's for you guys to contemplate if you feel more easily connected with the invisible realms and less easily connected with the human grounded 3-dimensional experience of this energy. So all of this to say that no matter which side of the path we're walking towards, we're all walking towards this middle point, which is aligning ourselves and accepting ourselves in what I call unity consciousness, which is the space where all parts of our multidimensional selves are accepted, loved, and given space to be expressed in their fullest expression here. So that's very unique to each person. Whatever it is we're here to express and experience in a lifetime is as unique as your fingerprint or as a snowflake. And there's no comparison between you and any other person on this planet. So if we accept then, even just for the sake of this podcast, let's say we accept it just for the next 30 minutes or so, that we are a vibrational being having a human experience and a human having a vibrational experience. what would happen if we accepted that we also had the potential to influence our life based on this wisdom and understanding? So, in the same way that you may have the wisdom, the acceptance, and the understanding that if you go to the gym every day and you train in a certain way, with the intention to build your muscles and your body in a certain way, at some point, with discipline and with vigilance and with repetition and with consistency and with the right information, that's what's going to happen. You're going to build this certain kind of body. Well, the same thing goes for this vibrational awareness and acceptance of oneself as a conscious co creator in your life. So if you take the time each day to connect with the part of you that is vibrational, that is source, that is light, and you really check in with what's going on in your sphere, in your whole sphere, in your subconscious, in your body, in your emotional body, in your energetic fields. And then you recognize that you have the power to attune your frequency. So this podcast is called Frequency First because that's what we want to share about. Understanding yourself almost like a radio, that you can twist the knob of the radio, for those of you who remember using a radio, and you can twist that knob of the radio until you find a clear channel. So you can twist through the static, and then finally, at some point, you will hit a clear channel and you'll be able to hear the music. That's the same thing that we have the capacity to do as a vibrational being, as a human, is to check in with our frequency and fine tune it. So, for example, let's say I wake up first thing in the morning and I've had a bad dream or a scary dream. So, if I take this time in my morning practice to just tune in and check in with myself as a vibrational being, I will feel a lot of static in my field. I will feel a kind of chaos in my energetic world. I won't feel settled. In my body, I might even feel like a tightness of breath. I might feel some chemicals racing through my body from the experience I just had in my dream. And I will feel that if I was just a blob of energy or a blob of light, let's say in that moment I would be vibrating a red color. Let's say if we had to give me one word in that moment when I've just woken up, it would be anger. Okay, let's have two examples. In example one, I wake up after my scary dream. I have my vibration, all kind of fuzzy and chaotic. And in my body, I have a lot of cortisol racing around and I feel stressed. And I don't take any time to tune in with myself as a vibrational being in that moment. Instead, I just get out of bed and I go about my day. Now, I walk into the kitchen, and the first thing that happens is I accidentally break a glass. So there's glass now shattered all over the kitchen floor. So now I have to spend some time cleaning up the kitchen. Now, I'm annoyed about the fact that the glass broke, and I'm annoyed because I woke up annoyed. So as I'm cleaning up the glass, I actually get a piece of glass stuck in my finger. So now I have a real problem. So now instead of getting to work on time, I have to now go quickly to the doctor to mend my hand before I can get to work. So I get in the car, and of course, there's a huge traffic jam. So I'm even more annoyed now, and I'm in pain, and I have this glass stuck in my finger. And I get to the doctor and, I have to wait there. And by the time I see the doctor, I'm actually so annoyed and I actually end up being rude to the doctor. Even though I'm not normally rude, I end up being rude to the doctor. And the doctor doesn't appreciate this. And so I don't receive very good care. Finally, I can leave the doctor. I have my hand bandaged. I make my way to work. I find a car spot really far away from my building. For some reason, on that day, I could not find a car spot close to my building. I have to pay a lot of money to park my car. I walk into the office and I see a huge pile of notes on my desk that have been building up because now I'm 2 hours late. Now, I don't need to go on. I think you guys get the point. So that's scenario one. Because in scenario one, I woke up and I'm a conscious co creator of my reality, and I had a huge amount of activation in my field, and it just snowballed. It just continued. So, in example two, the same thing happens. I wake up, I've had a bad or a scary dream, I've got a lot of cortisol in my body, I feel stressed and not good. I decide, okay, I'm going to do my morning practice anyway of checking in with myself as a vibrational being, even though I don't want to. So, as I'm doing that check in, I feel into my energetic field beyond just my physical body. I can feel this static and this chaos. And I decide to use one of my tools to shift this frequency, to turn the dial on the radio. The first thing I do is decide to shake it out. I can feel that there's a lot of static in my field. I decide to shake it out. I ask my higher self, my body, to release anything that's no longer serving me. And I literally feel this weight and this static shifting and moving out of my field. Then I take a few deep breaths and I focus on what I would really like to create in this day. I have a big day coming up at work, and what I would actually love is to be in a really, really good creative flow. So I call all of my energy toward myself with my breath, and I consciously create the energy of creative flow. Now, I'm a dancer, so I would do this with dance, but maybe you would do it some other way. Maybe you would sing. Maybe you would just breathe or visualize something that really makes you feel creative. And I would stay in this state until I could feel my whole self shift, including my energetic field. Now, this whole process only took 10 minutes. And after that 10 minutes, I go into the kitchen, I make myself a coffee, nothing breaks. I sit down in the sun for 5 minutes, drinking my coffee, just letting the sun hit my body, hit my skin, and really amplifying this intention that I have for the day. I just take myself mindfully through my morning things that I have to do: shower, get dressed, get in the car, go to work. I find a car park really, really close to work, so I have time to send, a quick voice note on my way into the office. By the time I get to my desk, I have completely forgotten about the dream. My body is completely relaxed. I'm in a receptive state and I'm open and I'm ready. And you know what? I have an amazing, creative, and super productive day. And this all came from this one moment and this one choice of deciding to honor myself as a vibrational being and to honor my power as a co-creative force in my life. So I hope this little example was helpful to show you, the power that we have as vibrational beings having a human experience. Now, I said that I would get into the topic of what is frequency art, but that is a huge, big topic. And I think I would actually prefer to chat to you guys about that in a separate episode. So, to just wrap up, I want to give you one more example to really let this concept and this idea sink in. And that is going to be based on some real life stories. So I was recently living in Paris in France. And if anybody's been to Paris in France and taken the public transport there, you will know that it can be quite an experience. So the Paris metro, if I'm going to be completely honest, whilst it's great in that, it's very frequent and you can get around the city in no time, it is very smelly and it is oftentimes quite unsafe. I felt quite unsafe many times on the metro in Paris because of the things that I saw when I was on the metro or the tram or the bus in Paris. So I decided to take my vibrational practice to the next level every time that I knew I would be taking the metro in Paris. Because as we are all vibrational beings having a human experience, I'd like you to imagine that each person getting on the metro has a bubble around their body. And inside that bubble, imagine that you can see one word written. So, for example, in the previous example, when I woke up from the bad dream, inside my bubble, you would have seen anger written, right? In the second example, you would have seen creative written in the bubble. So, if you imagine every single person that gets onto that metro has their own bubble and their own energetic frequency activated. Now, there's something called a collective frequency, which is when so many people think, generate, and embody the same energy. They create another huge bubble. So, if you can imagine now, an even bigger bubble that covers the whole metro. And inside that bubble, you'll see things commonly written and believed about the Paris metro, such as it's always late, it's smelly, it's unsafe. Um, all of these things exist in the bubble of the Paris metro. Now, the more these things exist, the easier it is for them to activate. Okay. So I decided to take my energetic practice pretty seriously anytime that I was getting on public transport. And I noticed some pretty crazy results. If I would leave my house without checking in with my vibrational awareness, and if for whatever reason I had fear activated in my bubble, I would undoubtedly get into the metro and have some kind of experience that matched this vibration of fear, or the people who check your tickets would get on, and this would inevitably start a fight in the carriage with someone, or there would be, someone acting a little crazy come and they would sit next to me. Of all places in the metro, the days when I was vibrating fear, this person would sit next to me. Um, if I was vibrating love and joy and peace and protection, I would get on the metro, my carriage would be empty. It wouldn't smell, there would be air conditioning. It would be a beautiful, smooth ride. One day, I was on my way to the outskirts of Paris and I was really, really angry. I was even having a really heated discussion with my friend, and I was talking about, something that I perceived that was unjust, and I was getting really, really fired up. And I was doing this inside a huge train station. I was wearing a long kind of kimono type shawl thing because I also felt quite conscious of covering my body on the Paris metro. And literally, you can't make this stuff up. At this moment that I was chatting with my friend, a man in the station literally started chasing me and screaming, very unkind things at me, and in French, and also telling me why was I wearing my pajamas, which was, yeah, directed at the kimono thing that I was wearing. So this was a super, 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 for me, poignant example of your vibration, your energetic field is magnetic, and you are constantly interacting with other people who are also magnetic. And this is like this beautiful, mysterious and endlessly fascinating thing that happens with us as individuals, that we are really all deeply connected. And we really all are also one. So, the same way that the trees send messages to each other through their roots or mushrooms, we also do the same thing. We emit a frequency, and subconsciously or consciously, we interact with that frequency before we even interact with words or anything more tangible. So, this is just another example for you guys to play around with if you're still in the moment of accepting yourself as a vibrational being having a human experience. Check it out the next time that you're on public transport or in a crowd or somewhere where you really have to interact with a lot of other bubbles. See how your experience can shift if you, in your own bubble, choose that which you want to create and bring out into the world, and then just notice, this interconnectedness that we all have. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that this maybe illuminated some new ideas about vibrational consciousness and unity consciousness. If you would like to stay in connection with me and my work, please keep listening to the podcast. I have amazing guests coming on very regularly. I also offer online sessions as an energetic healer and oracle, and you can check out my frequency art via my Instagram at genevieve.kyra. So wishing you a beautiful, abundant, and creative day. Thanks for tuning in to the Frequency First podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Frequency First Podcast or at genevieve.kyra or on the website www.genevievekyra.com, where you can find out more about all of our amazing guests, and you can also book an oracle reading in person or online with me here in Sydney. Lots of love and thanks for tuning in.